It's often been touted as the future of high-speed transportation, but the world's only actually working Hyperloop has only been seen by a handful of people. Today, I travelled out of Las Vegas and into the Nevada desert to take an up-close and personal look at what could be the system that we use to get around in the future. So there's always that weird feeling when you come to a site of historical importance, especially when the history books haven't been written yet. Over here is the dev loop, and it's Hyperloop 1's test environment. Now, to the untrained eye, it just looks like a very big oil or water pipe, but inside it is kept at a vacuum, and that is basically the vehicle upon which the future of transport may be built. Now, it's 3 meters wide, 500 meters long, and it's kept at an atmosphere of under 100 Pascal. For comparison's sake, the atmosphere that we're breathing out here is about 100,000 Pascal, but it's this vacuum technology combined with the maglev tracks inside that mean that potentially Hyperloop pods could travel at close to the speed of sound. A lot of people are always worried about the experience, the feeling, how is it going to be like to travel in one of these devices? But of course, we already know what it's like to travel faster than this because the Concorde existed, and it's not going to feel like that. Interestingly, because there's no wind resistance inside the tunnel, you won't even feel that shudder that you do when a commercial jetliner takes off. The only thing you'll probably feel is just a little bit of sensation in your stomach as you start to hit that top speed. Now, in terms of the engineering, if you look, you'll be able to see these pylons that are about 10–15 meters apart, and according to the company, they've been engineered to take not just the weight of a pod and the tube, but about 10 to 15 times more than that to make sure that, you know, should an earthquake happen, should anything else happen, it's going to stay perfectly solid. At the beginning and end of every Hyperloop tube would be an airlock. That way the vacuum inside the main tube itself can be preserved. Now, in a real scenario, you'd have to go into an airlock and wait a couple of seconds for the atmosphere to be pressurized at the vacuum before you could be zoomed off, and this requires a fairly sizable pumping station. One of the things that Hyperloop 1 has been able to do now is start making decisions about how the system will work in practice. For instance, there was a thought before that each city that was connected together would be point to point. So if, for instance, you'd go from A to B, you'd get out, and then you'd go from B to see if you wanted to go further. Now the thinking is that at any city you turn up to, you'll have 4 or 5 tubes, one of which goes to the next nearest city along, the next one going to the next one furthest out, and so on. Obviously that means that you're going to have very wide areas that are full of tubes, but the company's also looking into seeing whether it would be possible to stack them and keep them safe. One of the company's most recent hires is Dr. Anita Sen-Gupta, a NASA veteran who's most famous for helping get the Curiosity rover to land safely on Mars.
One of the reasons why I wanted to join Hyperloop 1 is because I wanted to be involved in an engineering development that helped people and allowed me to engage directly with people and to help ecosystems. So one of the things that we can do is that by instituting Hyperloops in countries around the world, is that we can create jobs, we can create innovation in areas from autonomous systems to lightweight materials to high efficiency batteries, right? So we're able to help society both from a jobs perspective as well as from a high-speed green transportation perspective. We are focused on the passenger experience and passenger comfort, and so we're selecting passenger comfort levels which are consistent with what you would see in high-speed rail. So in terms of lateral accelerations, in terms of any jerks that you might feel, in terms of noise levels, all of that will be completely like any other people mover system that you have. The advantage that we have, of course, is that because we're levitating magnetically and because we're in a vacuum environment outside of the pod, is that you won't experience things like turbulence that you would on an aircraft. So in a sense, it'll be a much smoother ride than both rail and aircraft. Okay. I see Hyperloop as basically replacing over-the-ground airplane travel. And what that means is that you can reduce fossil fuel consumption. We can do something about climate change. There's no reason why we can't have high-speed rail going across any country, right, over a range of topographies. So I see that as solving, at least doing its part to solve the climate change problem. And it facilitates people getting from point A to point B much faster. So we're planning to have the system available commercially in 2021, and that'll be the first time that people will be able to use the system and travel on it themselves.
Hyperloop 1, or to give it its full name, Virgin Hyperloop 1, has sometimes made bold promises that it's not been able to keep. The claim that it can have a working public route by 2021 is one hell of a target, and one that it will be very easy to miss. But it seems that the biggest challenges now aren't technical. It's about getting the people to open their hearts and probably their wallets to make this thing happen.